Welcome to the Elevated Ecomm podcast with me, your host, Emily Wilcox, Amazon channel expert and founder of Elevate, an Amazon sales agency.
And me, your co-host, Chelsea Jones, Shopify channel expert and founder of Chelsea and Rachel Company, a Shopify Plus agency.
Our mission is to help amazing brands expand their reach, grow more profitably, measure what matters, and discover new secrets for success.
From interviews with best-in-class brands to insider expertise and hooking you up with the best tech partners, your brand is about to get elevated.
Before we jump into today's incredible episode, we wanted to share some pretty exciting news. Chelsea and I have opened up a few spots on our calendars to help brands like yours. If you've been wanting to drive more sales on Amazon or take your Shopify store to new heights,
or simply have industry experts take a peek under the hood to identify some new growth strategies, well, we've got you. Shoot us a quick email. Our emails are in the show notes. Let us know that you listened to today's show and we'll get you hooked up.
Hello and welcome to Elevated Ecomm. Chelsea Jones, Emily Wilcox, and we are joined today by Nish Samantray, founder of Arrae. Nish, thank you so much for being here. Can you just start us off by telling us a little bit about you and Arrae and how you got started?
Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I'm so excited to talk to you guys all. So essentially the story behind how this started is this is co-founded by me and my wife. So Sif and I started this company together, and essentially we met around 12 years ago, and we met in college, and we're doing completely different things. So a little bit of background about myself. I'm a mechanical engineer who became a software developer kind of right out of school. And so I was writing code for a while. And after that, I became a product manager. And then Sif, my co-founder, who's also currently my wife, she's a creative. So she was a blogger, writer, and a podcaster. That's kind of what she did for a very long time. And essentially, it came to a point where the both of us were doing really well for ourselves, but we were in totally different worlds. So Sif was out there traveling all the time, and I was traveling for my tech jobs in like India and Japan. She's like out there in London and Paris. And we're like, listen, Sif, if you want to be together, we got to figure out how to combine our lives a little bit more, because we are all over the place. And obviously we really wanted to be together. And we said, okay, well, let's go figure out an idea to work on. And so essentially, Sif had kind of struggled with health issues her whole life. And it came to a point where she broke a rib from a chronic cough. And when that happened, it was crazy. And the doctor prescribed her codeine. And then it's like, okay, well, and then what? Like, what do we do after that? And it's at that point where, Sif and I started really experimenting with a different bunch of concoctions of types of supplements to help with digestive health, to help with mental health, to help with anxiety, whatever those kind of daily issues might be. And what was really interesting is, so the both of us actually come from a beauty background in the sense that we were really exposed to beauty products all the time. And so it's funny, but me as a man, I have like an 8-step skincare routine because I'm literally always stealing all of Sif's products. And I was like, well, why is it that beauty is a world where you have really efficacious products, you know exactly who they're made by, they're usually formulated by a doctor, and they're so beautiful to be able to integrate into your routine. And in wellness, that wasn't the case. And so we felt this world where truly the world of wellness is 10 years behind beauty. And we said, well, we really want to fix that. And so that's kind of how the idea behind Arrae was born, but that's a little bit about us as well.
I love that. So really the brand was like kind of founded on romance in a way. You were like, we want to be together, and functionality and beauty and just kind of an elevated experience. So why don't you tell listeners what exactly are your products and what problem do you solve?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially what we do is we create products that work in under an hour. That's kind of the realm of what we're trying to achieve. So, and very specifically because we looked at all these supplements, we said, okay, well, I don't really want to take something and then wait 6 months for my nails to feel stronger, right? Like that does not excite us as much. And so we said, we want to first of all solve really important issues. And second of all, we want our customers to be able to feel the effects of them. And so that is kind of the problem that we set out to solve. And very specifically, we're focusing in on digestive health. And so our very first 2 products were for bloating. So one, like essentially when you get bloated because of digestive health issues. And the other one was for anxiety. So for calm, so bloat and calm. Those are the first two SKUs we ever launched. And it's really interesting. We launched them because those two issues go hand in hand. So whenever you talk to doctors or functional medicine practitioners, they'll always tell you that it's kind of like this viral loop where the more stressed out you are, the more it slows down your digestion, which causes bloat. When you're bloated, it kind of takes up a lot of mental real estate, which makes you anxious. And it's kind of this viral loop. So those are the very first products that we came out with. And since then, we've obviously added on to the entire product lineup. So we have a product for sleep, because sleep and gut are also very related. Having good sleep actually allows you to have a very strong digestive system, which allows you to digest your food faster. And we also came up with digestive bitters, as well as a heartburn product that just launched yesterday, actually. So we have all those SKUs that came out. But the idea here really is to create products that you can use to take care of your digestive health. And very specifically, we have customers, obviously, who feel bloated because you might eat pizza and it doesn't sit well with you, or you might have a food allergy. But we also have people who suffer from things like IBS, IBD, Crohn's, like very chronic issues where you want to manage those symptoms. And the products were very specifically set out to solve those kind of issues.
That's incredible. So how long have you guys been at this, and where are you at from like a revenue perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So we have been doing this for just over 2 years. This year, we're going to finish up the year at about $25 million, which is really exciting. And
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
What an accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited. That'll end up, I think that's just over 3 years once we finish up this year. And so that's really exciting. And obviously, for us, it's just truly come down to finding the right problems to solve and creating really, really good products. And I think that it's just a testament to the quality of products that you're building and the way we're trying to solve these kind of problems.
I love that. And Chelsea, I'm curious because you guys work with Arrae behind the scenes on their Shopify site. And of course, you're behind the scenes on so many e-com brands. What do you see that's unique about Arrae and their approach to e-com?
Yeah, I love it because we had the honor of joining with you guys when you were smaller and helping you scale to this level that we're going through today on 3 years. And I think when you start out, and this is what I'd love to hear from you, Nish, on like the startup components of when you did that with your wife and you're scrappy and you're trying to do all the things, but now to kind of be at that run rate, right? It's the crawl, walk, run. How do we get to that like length? And where was those like almost like entrepreneurial leaps you had to do for you and your wife to really make those decisions to up level working with an agency, to up level kind of going where you're going as a vision, and just knowing where you can do stuff and where you couldn't, especially because you two are incredibly smart entrepreneurs and come at it from that background. But where was that like tipping point where you knew you kind of needed help?
So it's really interesting because I just feel like there's certain positions in the company where all of a sudden what you did does no longer work for what you want to do. And I feel like I can kind of describe them through some revenue markers. So as an example, what it took us to get from 0 to, let's say, $1 million was totally different than what it took from 1 to 10. And so from 0 to 1, it was literally just me and Sif focusing in on one thing, which is let's find 1,000 really happy customers and let's figure out how to curate a very personalized and extremely curated experience for them that they will never forget. So it was all about writing handwritten notes for them. It was about hand delivering products to their houses. So for example, literally me and Sif would get on my motorcycle and drive over to customers' house to kind of deliver products. And they loved it. Like those are our customers who are still buying today, 3 years later. And you'd be surprised because, obviously those things don't sound like they'll ever scale. And of course they don't. But what's really interesting is you learn so much about the customer base when you're doing things like that. We were doing that because we wanted to find out, okay, where are they living? What car are they driving? What kind of person is this? Do they have a family? Do they have dogs? Like, who is this girl, And so that's why we did this. And the more we did it, we knew exactly who it is that we were talking to. And so even today, we will actually go and do this every now and then just to get a recheck on, okay, who is this customer? How has the customer changed over time? Can this help us find a new avatar as an example? So it just really allows you to think in that kind of perspective. So for example, from 0 to 1, it was really just curating that experience, but also focusing in on one channel. So for us, that one channel was just working really, really hard on influencers. So we did not work on any sort of paid advertising strategy in our first year. And we only worked on influencers, and we only worked on building out a very, very strong community. And those are the only two things that got us there. Then from the 1 to 10 scale, this is kind of where we were starting to outgrow our old web agency, and then Chelsea's team came in, and they really kind of helped us grow to that period and that phase, because it just requires a little bit more sophistication. Because what happens is now you're starting to build up your customer base, and you kind of want to be able to speak to them in different ways. You're starting to run ads in different ways. You want to be able to A/B test landing pages. Your website and your customer journey needs to make more sense. You're having more product SKUs. So what does that look like from an upsell perspective, from a bundling perspective, from a customer journey? What is the first product you want them to experience? And so all these different things kind of come into play. So when that happened, I just think that the primary thing I would think about is growing the team in the correct manner. So it went from just me and Sif to all of a sudden, okay, who are the right people we need to surround ourselves by to help us with this next phase of growth? And what's really interesting is there was a point where we went from that 0 to 1 so quickly, and all of a sudden in that 1 to 3 range, we got stuck because we're like, wait, why is this not happening? And it was nothing to do with the products. It's nothing to do with the company. It just happened to be that we needed the right people to, again, catapult that growth. So all that happened is we brought in more team members. We started working with bigger agencies who were doing some things again. And then boom, same playbook, but just, being able to do more with the right people catapulted to 10. And then this 10 to kind of, let's say, 30 growth, that's another kind of playbook. So now we're bringing in more people with more experience, doing more types of things. So yeah, it really changes. And I would really say, Chelsea, to answer your question in one word, is really like hiring the right type of people and knowing when to hire them. It makes such a big difference.
Amen. Amen. And I'm so curious on the influencer strategy that you were doing early on. Were you focused on, would you say, like micro influencers, or landing like a couple big names that had massive audiences, or did you kind of do a mix?
Yeah, so we did a little bit of a mix. We had a little bit of an unfair advantage here because Sif is an influencer herself. This is what she did her whole life. And, we've obviously had a lot of experience working with influencers as well. And so we talked about this all the time, but when she was in that world, we would be like, why are they asking you to do these crazy things? And so they would literally come to you and be like, okay, you need to say exactly this, and then you need to pretend to do exactly this, and then the shots need to be exactly like this. And the more you did that, it was usually the larger brands who did that, and the smaller brands would be like, well, you really just do whatever you want because we love who you are. And so for us, we would always say, well, if you're ever to do this as a company, like, first of all, we would find the right partners. And second of all, we find them because of who they are. So let them go and do what they're good at. Let them go and be exactly who they are. And so that was a really important piece of it. So the first piece was actually, okay, find the right types of influencers. And we did that just because we're really plugged in to this kind of system and the ecosystem. And so people always ask, oh, like Nish, like, how do you guys find the right influencers? But this is really more of an art than it is a science. Like, there is no platform that's going to plug you in and give you a bunch of data which you can use to look at the influencers. I think all of that is really useful, and I think it's really important to be able to measure the way your influencer program is working. But truly, the people that we find are people that we've been following, we're really obsessed with. We see that they could, and most importantly, that they love our product. And so for us, we'd be like, well, here's our product, try our product out. Do you actually love it? Is this a genuinely organic relationship? And I really do believe that most influencers want to be so organic with the way that they're talking to the audiences, obviously. And so they only want to promote things that they love. And so what's really interesting is, okay, so you said like macro influencers or micro influencers. What's really interesting is with the big macro influencers, they're like, usually you want to find people who love the product. And so if they love your product, then they are going to talk about it in a way that is going to influence other influencers to be able to talk about your product. And so that's what's really cool about the big time influencers. But then at the same time, what's really interesting is we have had influencers with 70,000 followers perform better than people with 1 million+ followers. And so it's truly about finding people that you love. And then second of all, if you're going to go with the really big influencers, they really, really need to love your product, and you got to be following them for a while, and you got to build a relationship with them. And this is kind of the story of how, I mean, I think Chelsea knows about this, but this is a story of how Hailey Bieber actually started using our product. Like she bought our product organically because she was influenced by another influencer. And so this is how that world kind of works. So it's just really important to find people that genuinely like what you're building.
It's so funny that you say that. On that note, I think it's also so important. Like when you said the difference in going, from 0 to 1, from 1 to 10, and now 10 to 30, like there was a pivotal point of leap that you did and you and your wife did. What would you say on the influencer spectrum, but also on yourself personally, that you had to do from a mindset shift to kind of get there?
Oh my God, it's actually super important. Number one, we moved out of Canada. And so we were in Canada and we moved to LA. And so being in this city where there's so many other entrepreneurs and there's so many other people in this space, it just makes a big difference. You learn things faster. It just kind of expedites your learning curve of, okay, what are other people doing? Getting exposure to different ways of running a business. It is really, really cool. So as an example, it's really funny, but in Toronto, you have a lot of really smart technical people. And so the way you approach business is a very data-driven, very technical kind of way of doing things. And then I have a friend over here who has a $70 million business, and they started running ads now, like literally after $70 million. And then for me, I'm like, sorry, what? Like, how is that even possible? And then you realize there's genuinely so many ways and so many types of ways of thinking to be able to do this. And that happened because you're surrounding yourself with the right people. So number one, making that move was one of the most important and crucial things. I don't think Arrae would be where it is without us being in LA and just meeting people in LA. That's number one. Number two is that we got really, really disciplined as humans. And we really started to believe in the internal story that we had, and we started to vocalize it outwards more. So what I mean by that specifically is kind of just like, if I want to be the person who's going to build a $30 million, $100 million business, I need to start behaving like that person. And so that kind of a person, like when I started meeting them, I'm like, wow, they really do not waste time. For example, they're not waking up and looking at TikTok first thing in the morning. They're not spending time with people that they don't want to spend time with. Their schedule is really tightly managed. They are spending time on their health, their wellness, they're focusing on themselves, they're eating well, they're going to the gym properly. They're just surrounding themselves with the right things so that they are in a very good place themselves. And so Sif and I actually started focusing a lot on ourselves. And what I mean by that is like, we started focusing more on our relationship because we wanted to get into a place where, okay, this is a really unique situation where we need to have a really good personal relationship and also a really good business relationship. So let's work more on ourselves as husband and wife. Let's also work on ourselves as founders of this company. Let's also work on that because people who we hire, who let's say are older than us or have more experience than us, they're only going to come work for us if they respect us as who we are. And so changing our habits, changing our way that we think, the way that we speak, the way we portray ourselves, all these things are things that we wanted to sort of refining kind of, and then you become a different person. And the most important thing that I think we've done recently, just like if there's a part of ourselves that we don't like, or we have a review where we say, okay, Sif, like, I don't think that this habit of yours is particularly one that is, doing you any good. And vice versa. She'll tell me this, and we'll sit down and kind of review this every quarter and we say, okay, so let's change this. And so it's kind of called like your higher self thinking, where we're like, what would a better version of Nish do? What would a better version of Sif do? And let's think about that, and then let's try to implement a different version of that. I think just improving yourself is super important because obviously you are building the company. So if you're good, then the company's going to be good.
I love that. Okay, so I have to ask, because I'm sure you guys get this question all the time. You mentioned it, your personal and your business relationship. How do you draw boundary lines on when you're talking to one or the other?
It's so hard. It's honestly so difficult, but me and Steph have gotten way better at it. I think that essentially, so to be completely honest, in the early days, and even today, it's still in early days, it's just, you have to give it everything you have. So for initially, I'd be lying if I said that we were drawing boundaries. It actually did become slightly unhealthy, where like 90% of the time you're talking about work and then 10% of the time you're working on ourselves. What's really exciting about it though, that both of us are so passionate about this company that kind of still kept us together, because it's something that we bond over. It's something that we're both excited about. It brings a lot of joy to us when things are going well. And the hard part is when things are not going well. And when that's happening, obviously there's stress involved, and we are collaborating on things that we need to solve very immediately. And in those scenarios, that's when you need to step back and be like, okay, this is a very difficult thing to deal with, but like, let's go and deal with ourselves and have some fun. So we started doing certain things and integrating certain practices, which allow us to do so. And I think this is just practices that you should do regardless of whether you have a business with your partner or not. Is this kind of things where we started, okay, so, you must go out for date night. We must talk about something other than work. So, and it's very easy for us to do. Like, we're always talking about different things, but we'll go out on different types of date, which kind of forces to not be at a similar situation before, for example, dinner. So dinners are really boring after some time. And as much as we love amazing food. So for example, me and Steph just went to a comedy show together. That was really, really fun. It's an experience. We're doing something different. Another thing we would do is like, okay, let's go and work out of a completely different environment. I really noticed that when you're in a different environment, you get out of your head and you are kind of surrounded by this complete newness, which literally forces you to think of your surroundings more, because others you're just used to where you are. And so it could be something as simple as working out of a coffee shop or working literally in nature. These things really, really make a difference. And so changing our environment helps a lot. So you will notice that Steph and I are actually almost never in one space for more than a couple of weeks or a month. And to be completely fair, that is not by design, it's more by circumstance, because we've been traveling so much. But it's really helped us not have to actively think about being together, because we just naturally have fun. Because if you're in a different space, we're kind of, oh, like, this is new. Why don't we go on a walk together? Why don't we go do this? And all those things kind of just allow us to, partake in activities that are outside of work. And then when we're not doing that, we're working. And that really helps a lot. So just being able to, use certain tactics and certain kind of ways to do things that are out of routine is pretty helpful. And I would really say that when it does work, it's such an amazing relationship. You just get to have so much fun in business and life, which are two such important aspects of life. And it really, really makes the relationship something that is so important and something you look forward to like every day.
Amazing. I could nerd out on this mindset stuff the whole time, and like the couple dynamics, because my husband and I work together too. And I feel you on the ebbs and flows of it being all work and then slowly adding in some more romance and fun. And now we're at the point where it's like, if we're in husband-wife mode, we're texting each other. If you want to communicate with me about work stuff, that's on Slack. So it's like my brain doesn't have to context switch, but that's like years into things.
That's amazing. That's actually really smart.
It really helps. So you can take that trick if you want it.
That's amazing.
Okay. So I want to nerd out on e-com stuff a little bit. And of course, I always look at things through the lens of Amazon, because I'm looking at your brand and it's there, but I'm like, it's not really there. Like, you could be crushing on this channel and you're not. So I'm curious, what's been the mindset behind that? Like, have you just had to prioritize inventory, or is there a reason why you're not prioritizing the Amazon channel?
Yeah, to be completely honest, it's because our e-com channel is still seeing a lot of growth. And so while we were seeing, that type of growth in e-com, we said, let's continue to focus on that. The second thing is, the one thing I realized is I really despise bad manufacturing operations practices. And what I mean by that is, when the company is growing a little bit faster than you expect it to, it's very difficult to keep up with demand operationally. And that is, as much as that sounds like a champagne problem, it's truly a problem that can kill your business. And the number of times I've dealt with, going out of stock or not a customer receiving their order on time, it is such a bad experience. It can generally cause someone to not buy again. And so for us, we are really focused on improving our manufacturing kind of efficiencies before we start pushing heavily on Amazon. And so we just started Amazon, I think it was not very long ago. It was only about 2.5 months ago. So it's not been a very long time since I've been on there. But I think that operations is really important, because I know Amazon also has, really, really important kind of manufacturing guidelines. And if you miss those, you're going to get kicked off the platform. And so we really want to have that in place, and we will pretty soon. But this year, Amazon's a really big focus for us. We definitely want to scale more on there. We want to have more products on there. We want to focus in on having more reviews there. And I think it's just not been a priority, literally, because of operational inefficiencies.
Yeah. Well, I actually agree with that answer, because especially right now, you're not on Amazon Prime, but once you are, going out of stock really hurts you. You lose a lot of momentum. And because of the Amazon buying experience, it is a little bit harder to fix things if there is something wrong. And so I think you're right to say, we really want to put our foot on the gas, but when we know that we've got the inventory and the operational support for it. So I've got a million ideas on what you can do to absolutely crush on the channel. So we can take that offline, but let's talk a little bit more about Shopify as well. Because I think one of our goals on this podcast is to nerd out a little bit and to say, like, what is your tech stack? What are the favorites behind the scenes that are helping to support the growth of your brand or the way that you engage with your customers? So maybe you and Chelsea together can kind of tackle that question.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see, from a tech stack perspective, we're quite similar to most people in the sense that we're based off of Shopify. We use Klaviyo for email. We actually moved over to Rodeo for subscriptions, which has been quite good. Like, I think working with them has been very, very helpful. The team is super responsive, and they're able to kind of build out quite a significant and robust set of features to help us grow in subscriptions. And we are a very heavy subscription business, so focusing on that is really, really important for us. So we use subscriptions. We use Peel Insights for data, which has been actually really, really helpful. And I think that that's where our cohort information, like, we're very big on looking at cohort information by product, by non-subscribers, by subscribers, and then also looking at revenue retention in the same categories. So Peel is really good at giving you that. I prefer that to Lifetime. And so that's been really helpful. And the next app that I use quite a bit is actually, and then we use the Canada reviews, and the team over there is really helpful as well. But those kind of, that stack is very, very helpful for us. And obviously we're on Shopify Plus, so we do a bunch of coding on different pages that we need custom for whatever we need. And oh my God, I'm forgetting the main one, which is Rebuy. I think Rebuy is probably my favorite third-party app, which is super, super helpful just because we get to build on top of it as well. And so just those kind of core platforms are really helpful for us for sure.
And one thing that we've been able to do is collaborate so much on that. So because as an agency, we're, top Rebuy, Kendo and subscription partners, we've been able to talk with the founders and collaborate with their engineering to make it a better experience for you and your ecosystem, which has been so fun to kind of see that. And so one of our advantages that we got to do, and I think it'd be fun, Nish, for you to share all the wins around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then into how we're looking into this year, because we had a landing page built out, and then we had some Rebuy updates and different things that we were able to deploy kind of best in class and first for you based on our relationships with some of these tech stacks, and making it kind of let's test this out and see from a data perspective. So I'd love to just get your take on some of that and how that's been in a agency working relationship too, from a brand, because I think that's a big question a lot of brands have when they're looking at those leaps as to how this works from a collaboration and communication standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's really cool, Chelsea, is with your agency specifically, you have a bunch of these relationships. And so whenever it comes to, asking a question or being able to do something slightly more unique, we have the ability to literally go to talk directly to a point of contact there. And that's really helpful just because we get to very quickly implement something that might actually require custom coding to be able to do that. So for example, for Black Friday, I remember us running a GWP with one of our promotions, and that was obviously a very, very intense and difficult moment, but we were able to kind of do this for different currencies across different platforms on different landing pages. And I remember that rebuy had an issue there, but we got it all fixed. And so we were able to kind of really work on this last minute and get it up into production. And very specifically, GWPs as an example is such a great tactic and sales tactic for a lot of our brands. And so it's something that worked really, really well. And more importantly, now even another rebuy example is just being able to customize that in-purchase and post-purchase journey for the customers. So for example, with your flyout cart, your pop-up examples, we're really able to custom CSS as an example, all of those little widgets that we want. So here is an upsell. And in the upsell, do we want some reviews there? Do we want some specific wording there? Do we want, different sizing of the products there? And to be able to do that, let's say on the PDP page itself, right underneath the add to cart button, or whether it's in the flyout cart, and if that experience on mobile is different than the one on the web, and to be able to really A/B test with those kind of different features has been super helpful. And your team has been really, really amazing just getting a bunch of those set up, because I know we are so demanding when it comes to, being able to try out so many different things. But honestly, it moves the needle because it's that experimentation that allows to get an answer. And as a result of that, we're able to push more and more traffic towards things that truly work. And you never know what's going to work until you try it. And so the ability to test and work with these third-party apps is just such a crucial growth hack for the company.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you guys also have the perspective and know-how that, it's never just a plug and play component with a SaaS app. I think that's a fallacy in the industry that some people think, oh, I just plug this in and it's all going to work. It's never the case. You have to have it personalized to your brand and what you're doing and scripting it out and leveraging the tools on how they work in an ecosystem like Flywheel. So I love that. And no, it's been a journey and a joy to work with you guys and have these things build out. We love testing the nuances. Like our philosophy and dream is also to be best in class on the way that we're serving the industry in this tech stack. And I think, everyone feels like they're a little bit behind in it because there's always new stuff coming out. But the best way to do the new stuff is by testing and putting that out there, like you said.
For sure. Emily, she's just saying that. We're actually a nightmare to work with, but she's just saying it.
We don't allow nightmare clients on the podcast, so you've already made the cut. I would love to dive more into the data analytics that you were talking about. So I'm really curious. Of course, we always want to look at all the metrics. And I'm curious, if you could only pick 3 or 4, do you feel like there's any way that you guys look at your business and look at the data that is kind of a secret sauce or a competitive advantage?
I think that this is just understanding, cutting up the raw data, and then looking at it the way you want to is super important. And so it's not even a secret sauce. I just feel like everybody should be doing this. And in fact, I just feel like a lot of people don't, which is why they're missing out on major insights in the company. And so to give you some examples, let's say I just talked right now about those 3 metrics, which is revenue retention by cohort analysis, customer retention by cohort analysis, and then splitting those 2 metrics up into subscribers and non-subscribers. It is such an important metric to look at that if you're a subscription business. And I can talk about something that's a non-subscription business after as well. But if you're a subscription business, taking a look at that is so important because it will tell you exactly how your subscribers behave, how your non-subscribers behave. And the reason I say revenue retention is because just because you're subscribed does not mean that you're actually buying at a certain frequency that you think you are. And so learning about that data will tell you exactly how different types of customers are buying and why. Then once you have that data analysis, you literally take those cohorts and you say, okay, where are they dropping off? Why? Why is month 3 different than month 6, different than month 9? And why is that different for your subscribers versus your non-subscribers? And then you literally double down on flows that are working and you completely change the ones that are not working. And then you can, once you start modeling this out a little bit over the next 12 months, 24 months, you realize that a 1%, 2% tweak when you're looking at your retention information completely changes your business. And it's so important to understand what that 1%, 2% can do for you and how you need to change your business to be able to do that. And what's really interesting is, we think of the e-commerce business, you think of it in terms of vision, you think of it in terms of products, you think of it in terms of ads, but it's a really interesting perspective. And I don't know if I agree with this perspective yet. It's just one is that at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is your numbers, because at the end of the day, you're building a business as you want to be profitable. and you're building a good business. And a good business is built when the numbers look good. So almost like if that P&L and your metrics and your cash flow and your statements, if those things don't look good, then your business is not good, no matter how amazing your products are and no matter what it is that you're trying to achieve in the world. It's a very interesting perspective, but I'm starting to think a little bit that way as well. And so really understanding how those things bleed out into a very numerical way of thinking is just super important. And so those are the three that I focus on a lot because our business is, really dependent on that as an example. But I also tend to split out the business in different ways where, okay, numerically it is one thing, but let's look at the page and the conversion. So as an example, like if you're looking at our landing pages, I'm really, really interested in our conversion rates by landing page. Like I'm always focusing on that and looking at how to optimize those all the time. And then what's really interesting is if you start optimizing your conversion pages and they're starting to have 5, 7, 10% kind of conversion at a very decent amount of traffic, it's really cool what happens when you start pushing a lot more traffic and see your conversion rate drop. And it's a very scary thing to do because all of a sudden now you're spending like an extra $10,000, $20,000 a day unprofitably. But it completely exposes what is wrong with your page at that level of scale. And so you need to have a lot of kind of guts to do that and then continuously iterate on the page. And once you do that, you're like, oh my God, all of a sudden I have an even better page than I did. And you keep iterating on the cycle. And I love doing that on landing pages because it just really allows you to tweak a little thing that will change the entire page completely. Like I had a friend whose button color changed from something to this ugly orange color. And it completely, like he was able to spend $10 more in ads because of the change in his button color because it converted so much better. Like it's actually absolutely insane. But there's things like this I really, really care about.
Yeah, it really is incredible. Like when you start to nerd out and get that granular and you're just willing to look at it as an experiment. Like everything's on the table. Let's try it, and let's try it in a scientific enough way that we can measure it and figure out what worked or what didn't.
It's really funny because so I used to work in technology companies as a product manager, software developer, right? And whenever you started working on a new feature, one of the first things you would literally do is build out the data tracking set first. Like that was a number one requirement. Like you don't build a feature until you have the ability to track how the feature does. So that's number one. And then number two is you don't build out the feature in one way. You build out the feature and have hundreds of tests running at a time. Like this is literally happening at every single major tech company, where every single feature has multiple tests running to multiple different audiences. And it's not even hundreds, it's actually tens of thousands, to be completely honest. And that is how these things iterate. Like the reason why we're so addicted to these platforms, or we actually appreciate these platforms, let's say, is because they're running so many tests and constantly iterating. And so at a certain level of scale in the e-commerce brand, you have to do that too. And I just think that it's, it'd be silly not to, but this is exactly how best in class is done. So it should be no different for e-commerce, where we're the same type of technology enabled business anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. What are some predictions that you have for 2023, both for Arrae as well as just e-com or CPG in general?
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, so I think I'm already seeing this shift, but I really feel like when it comes to CPG, it's no longer a DTC only channel. I feel like, okay, DTC only was really fun, really hot, and it was actually really good all the way after COVID. And right now, I feel like if you are going to genuinely see big success and you want to build a big company, DTC is just a channel, and you have to figure out how to be good on multiple channels. And so this is no longer about just being good on Amazon and just being good on Shopify and building a website. You must figure out how to be good on social. You must figure out how to be good in retail if that's part of your strategy. Basically, completely channel agnostic and being good at all of those. I think that's really, really important. Another one that I think is going to happen is that people who are not paying attention closely to their numbers are going to completely go out of business. I think that especially in the venture world, as an example. So we are a venture-backed business, and we have a lot of other friends who are venture-backed businesses, and a lot of these businesses are struggling really, really hardcore. And I think that we're in this period of time where, because of the economic environment we're in, I think capital is going to be slightly harder to get, and it's also more expensive to get, which means you have to build your businesses based on more information, data, and better products, as opposed to just more capital inefficiency. And so what used to happen is, they say that when there's too much capital, all the capital gets competed away. And so what's going to happen is all these companies that are just competing away their capital or are not generally building good products, they're going to go out of business. The only ones that are going to survive are ones who really know how to use every dollar wisely, and the ones that are building amazing products. And there's going to be a lot of companies that we think are doing really well, but they're not actually going to do well. So I really feel that way as well. And for Arrae, I mean, we're just doing what we're doing. We're building our products. We're having a lot of fun doing it. We'll continue to grow. Hopefully, we're building out, a bigger team. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Your fun is absolutely infectious. And I have no doubt that everyone listening is going to want to connect with you and connect to Arrae and try the product. So can you just share where you guys hang out online, the best way for listeners to connect with you and your brand?
Yeah, of course. So you can find the brand Arrae.com, obviously, and on Instagram at Arrae.co, and same thing on TikTok, Arrae.co. And you can find me as Plenty of Nish on Instagram and on Twitter as well. And you can find my co-founder Sif at Sif Hyder on Instagram and TikTok as well.
Amazing. We'll make sure all of that is linked in the show notes. Nish, thank you so much for being here. To everyone listening to Elevated Ecomm, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Listeners like you make this show what it is, so thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with someone who wants to elevate their ecomm.
We also love listener feedback, so feel free to slide into our inboxes, let us know what you love about the show, and of course, if you're looking for support on Amazon or Shopify, we'd love to explore working together.